Are you ready to get into the good bit? Today is about finding where we can make those improvements. Welcome to part 3 of this 8-part series. Last week we looked at what our process streamlining goals are and we defined our process ready for today. Today I'm going to go through the methodologies I use to find opportunities in any process. Hi, I'm Rebecca, a business operations advisor helping busy business owners get time back without working more. So let's get into it. Okay, so first I have to make a confession, but I hope it's a good one. So I promised we would look at process streamlining, and we will in an upcoming section. But I actually want to take you one better and look at process optimization. What's the difference? Streamlining is taking the processes you already have and looking for the fat to trim. Can we remove duplicates, automate, reduce wasted time? This is, of course, a valuable exercise, but I want to show you how you can optimize your processes, which is about ensuring that the process itself is the best one before we make sure it's as lean as it can be. So how do you optimize your processes? To help us here, I have developed what I call the AIDE model, AIDE, which stands for Action, Intention, Decision, and Error. For each of the process steps that we laid out last week, we can look at each one using these buckets. This will help us diagnose where opportunities are. The model helps you ask the right questions to find out what is happening at the moment. So under action, what actions do you take as this work arrives on your desk? Which actions are automated? What prompts you to take action? What prevents action? Which actions take longer or are harder than they should be? Intention. Why do we do this task? What does good look like? What's important about doing this bit? Why is it important for the business? Decision. What decisions are needed in this step? What prompts a different decision? Who or what else is involved? Which decisions are data-led and which are gut feel? An error. What goes wrong? What causes delay? What issues do other people cause? What, if anything, causes you to need to redo the work entirely? So let's go over to the whiteboard and run through an example. Okay, so let's have a look at the AIDE model. Last week we looked at a company that I made up on the spot that made websites for dentists or dental practices. So let's continue with that awful example. So what we would do under the AIDE model is our objective is to work out what is happening through our process. So we started to lay out our process last week. We had inquiry, proposal, wireframe, approval, and then there was more than that, but I'm obviously not going to go through everything. And the idea is I would sit down with anyone involved in this, if you have a team as well, to get everybody's input. So we go through each of the question areas, starting with action, then intention, then decision, then error, or you can kind of do them all at the same time depending on how your brain best works, how the information best flows in the meeting. So let's just kind of do a bit of an example. So for example, in our example company, we said that they had, somehow they were generating inbound inquiries into their business for people looking, or dentists looking for their websites to be built or repaired. So at the inquiry stage, they have mainly incoming emails that they're dealing with. So let's say there's a couple of people working in that team or one person working in that team. So we would speak to them and say, right, what's happening in that stage? So what actions are you taking? So it's going to be things like monitor inbox, respond to emails, set up calls with whoever the salesperson is. Set up calls. Maybe there's sending out brochures, something like that. Sending brochures. Maybe they gather the very first bits of information to put into the CRM. So let's just put CRM info. And then what is their intention? So let's say it's to set up qualified calls, sales calls. It's probably to maximize the number of qualified sales calls that get put onto the books. What decisions do they make when doing that? So they're probably looking at prioritizing. Who do I respond to first? Prioritize. Maybe there is some kind of decision around, does this look like it's worth having a call? Maybe they don't, maybe some people, they build websites, maybe sometimes people contact them for something they don't offer, like security on their website or ranking better on Google or something. So maybe it's kind of pre-qualify. Maybe there's 2 or 3 salespeople, so maybe they're making a decision about which salesperson to go with. Salesperson. Okay, what goes wrong? And again, it will be the team that's looking after it that will tell you. So let's say I'll just make stuff up. Sometimes you take too long to respond, and you lose the sale. Maybe sometimes the salesperson cancels the call, and you have to start again. Maybe what else could go wrong? Maybe you don't set the price expectations and so people fall off, maybe they don't confirm the calls, etc, etc. And you would go through each section kind of listing out all of these things. And what you'll find in my experience, in a real life example, a lot of things get pulled out that you just weren't aware of because it's other people that are doing that piece. So for example, when you go through the proposal stage, which is probably going to be your sales guys, so let's say this is let's say you've got 2 salespeople and you've got 2 people monitoring the inbox. What you'll often find is that the salespeople will say, well, they don't come through pre-qualified, and the inquiry people will say, well, you keep cancelling the meetings, or you don't take the meeting quickly enough, or whatever the case may be. You'll find all of these kind of blocking points that you can improve when you're optimizing your processes. So you would go through and fill this out for all of the steps in your process. Okay, it's really easy to jump in here and try and fix what you found. But wait, we need to look at it in the context of our goals. It would be easy peasy to move the printer closer to your desk if you found that walking backwards and forwards was taking up lots of time. But what if not printing was the better solution? So how do we work this out? Well, we create a bridge from the sustainable profit model that we looked at in part 2 to the aid model using the if-then hypothesis method. If-then is, if we did this, then it would cause that. And the thing we want to cause is more impact on our sustainable profit. Probably easier to explain with an example. Okay, so now let's look at the if-then hypothesis model. So this is a partial aid model from earlier, and I have on my tablet here, which I'll put up on the screen, the sustainable profit model that we built last week for the fictitious dentist company that we're looking at, dentist website company that we're looking at. So let's work out how we do the if-then. So normally you would have a lot more than this filled out in the aid model because you would have been through every single step, but let's just stick with this just to make life easier. So the if-then model, you look at things you want to improve on your sustainable profit model. So you're always looking to reduce variable costs, increase revenues, increase value to the customer, get more new customers, or have existing customers come back more. All of those things should increase your sustainable profit. So if we're looking at honing in on, in the example, we looked at, what of these things would get us more. So if, we said down here in our kind of errors, one of the errors was that sometimes we take too long to respond to an incoming inquiry, and so the person looks elsewhere and we don't get the call booked. So our hypothesis could be, if, I think we need to write this on the board, but if we lost fewer calls, how do you phrase that better? If we didn't, if we responded faster, i.e. we booked more calls, we would win more jobs, let's say. So that would be one of our hypotheses. I wouldn't write it, but you would write that down as one of your hypotheses. You could say, so what else did we say? Said here sometimes the sales team cancels. So again, same thing, right? If we cancelled fewer calls, we would generate a higher volume of calls. So you would go through each of the things. Under proposal, we roughly talked about the fact that you'd have, let's say, sometimes the calls that came in weren't pre-qualified, so the sales team is wasting time on calls that weren't ever going to yield anything. So on our sustainable profit model, one of the things that we say is that drives profit is staff's time, so staff spending time on value-add activities. Obviously the sales team spending time on calls that are never going to convert is a waste of time. So another hypothesis could be, if sales staff never spent time on unqualified sales calls, they could spend more time on value-added activities. So you kind of go through matching up as many as you can possibly think of, because we'll look at how you refine that later. If we did something differently that's come to light in our aid model, then it improved something that we've identified on our sustainable profit model as something which drives profit for our business. You come up with a whole bunch, you don't have any solutions yet, you just have a list of hypotheses of, if we fixed this, then we would drive this, that positive thing for our business. Running through this, you will end up with way too much to improve, and some of it will be marginal and some of it will have a big impact. Next week, we will look at how you prioritize and then actually design the solutions. What if you really are just wanting to streamline and not optimize? Well, for completeness, let's talk about that too. So there are a handful of ways that you can streamline your processes. Again, take the map that you built last week and let's run through the checklist of things I would look at for opportunities to streamline. Firstly, duplication. Is there anywhere across the process where the same thing happens twice? How can you share or pass the information along to remove this duplication? 2, excess movement or distance. Either physical or with a mouse, do people need to go further than they need to? Is there a lot of searching about happening or asking people stuff that could be removed from your process? Waiting. Is there anywhere where people or things are waiting for someone else to do something? Approval, perhaps. How can you eliminate the wait times? Can you add capacity or batch in a different way? Standardization. What can be templatized? A standard form to fill in? Are there decisions that can be standardized? As long as they fall within certain parameters, you don't need to check with the boss. And only check if it's an unusual case. Eliminate. Are there any steps that just don't add anything, that don't contribute anything to the overall objective? What can you remove from the list? And of course, automation opportunities. A couple of places to look for this. One, within apps. Most apps these days have some kind of built-in automations. Can you take advantage of them? When X happens, do Y. 2, between apps. Do you set someone up in your CRM and then create a task card, or create a folder, or add them to your invoicing software, or send them out a contract? Where you do the same actions in sequence that can be automated using a low-code platform like Zapier or Make.com. And 3, you wish, automating using AI. AI is brilliant at taking new information and applying it to a pattern. So proposals, for example, or summarizing stuff. So creating all the tasks that come out of a meeting, or working out what needs to be done from a defined data set. So your travel arrangements may be from everything that's in your calendar. So there we are, a big pile of identified opportunities for improvement. Next week we will prioritize, and the week after we will look at how to figure out solutions to address or capture those opportunities.